Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And today we're going to talk about something, and we're going to have a little bit of, we've talked about this topic a few times over the last 6+ years of doing the show, but not from this angle. So anyone out there who is an author, maybe you've written some things, you kind of have the idea you want to do a book, you haven't done a book, you think you got a book in you, and you haven't really, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do. We're going to talk today about how you can create a book without ever writing a word and how it can help your business. So who do we get to help with that? Well, let me just tell you who we have this week. Our guest this week is none other than Ms. Peggy McColl. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She has released 21 books in both fiction and nonfiction categories. Her books have been translated into 37 languages, and she's sold books in close to 100 countries. I think this is something we want to learn from, guys. She has worked with and been endorsed by some of the most renowned experts in the personal development field, including Bob Proctor, Neil Donald Walsh, Jim Rohn, Dr. Wayne Dyer, everyone knows him. Everyone knows all these names. Mark Victor Hansen, Carolyn Miss, Greg Braden, Debbie Ford, Ariel Ford, Hay House, Marianne Williamson, Dean Graziosi. I mean, tons of everybody, right? She's going to help us work through this and how we can do this. And I'm sure you're intrigued, like how can you write a book, create a book without writing a word? Peggy, without further ado, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Thank you, Mr. Biz. It's so great to be with you today. I love the subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just met Peggy a couple of weeks ago, and she mentioned, she said, man, I've written all these books. And I said, whoa, did you just say 21 books? Like as in 2 and a 1, like 21 books? Holy crap. And here I said, I feel very inadequate. I've only written 3 books, and I feel like really like I don't even belong here. But before we get into all that, Peggy, tell us a little bit about some of your entrepreneurial journey and your background.
Sure. Well, I got into personal development in January 1979, probably before you even born, Ken.
Not quite.
Not quite. I was, my life was quite a mess at the time. I was suicidal, actually, and I was not even supposed to go to this event, but sort of forced to go by my employer. And it was Bob Proctor who was the speaker. And when he got on stage and he talked about being in a prison of your own making, and not realizing that you're in a prison that you can escape from, that's when I decided I'm going to dedicate my life to turning my life around to positive change. And after several years of really working on improving my life, I just realized I want to help other people. So I decided to incorporate a company in 1994 and do seminars. And this is before the web was even out there or anywhere close to what it is today. So I started doing training and seminars, and my business was really successful. I loved teaching. I really loved teaching. And so somewhere around 2002, I decided I'm going to write a book. And the reason I decided to write a book was because I felt that many of the books that were out there at the time just seemed complicated, and the way to create our destiny is not complicated. So I wrote a very simple, understanding book about how we are creators of our life and how we also are destroyers. We're destructive too. And that's really what my journey was into becoming an author. But I was doing this part-time. It wasn't the main gig that I was doing. I was still running my business. I wrote the book on the side, but it ended up turning into another stream of revenue because I started marketing online. And that's why I was selling books all over the world. And then people started coming to me saying, help me, help me, help me. I didn't realize that others didn't have the depth of understanding of how to effectively market online in the early 2000s. So my business shifted, and I started teaching authors how to market their books on the internet and how they could create bestsellers, how they could get on the New York Times bestseller list, and how they could create their work from anywhere in the world, and you don't have to get on a plane and travel anywhere. And it led to this area of expertise. And of course, 21 books later, I'm still doing that work.
Interesting. So I got to ask though, you skipped over a little gap there. So 79, you go to the Proctor event.
Yeah.
And then 94, you kind of figure out, hey, I want to do this on my own. What sort of meanderings did you have in there? I mean, did you have some bobs and weaves in between?
Yeah, I was just really like a junkie or an addict in a way, but in a good way. I was addicted to the materials. And, throughout that period of time, which was about 15 years before I incorporated, I was just studying everything that I could get my hands on and going to every seminar that I possibly could. Like I had such a hunger to get out of the emotional pain that I was in, and had a hunger to stop sabotaging my results. And so it was a very serious study. I think about somebody who goes to school for many, many, many years to get a certain degree. It was like a school of life, school to learn how to get your life working for you. But all the while I was working, in the corporate world. I worked for a lot of large organizations, like Toshiba was an employer of mine. I was a national marketing manager there for years. So I was applying as well. So I had a really good career. I was earning good money and doing great work and loved what I was doing. But I really wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to not have a limit on what I could earn. And that's why I decided to incorporate the company.
So I have to ask, was there a certain like epiphany? Was there a moment in time where you were like, okay, I've always wanted to do, because this relates, I went through the same thing, Peggy. So I'm always curious when we have guests on who left a successful corporate career and decided to go out on their own and do their own thing. Was there a particular mind, or did you say, whenever X happens, that's it, I'm out of here? Is there anything like that in your corporate career that said, this is it, this is the time?
Yeah, I was walking down Yonge Street one day in Toronto. I was born and raised in Toronto, and I was walking down Yonge Street, and I just had this epiphany moment, if you will, and I stopped in my tracks, and the idea just popped into my mind. Do this for a living, like help other people, get out there and create your own courses and your own programs and teach. And I just, it was like a calling. I don't know what you want to call it, but it was an idea. It was an idea that literally popped in my mind. And I thought, I'm going to do it. It took me a while to actually be brave enough to let go of that corporate job, because
Sure.
I really liked automatic payroll deposit.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. And the idea of this is risky, it's risky to go out on your own. And I know, you can earn unlimited amounts of money, but you never know what's going to, come in the next little while. And when I decided to incorporate my company, I had just gone through a divorce and my son was 2. I was a single mom.
Wow.
So it was really scary. But you know what? I allowed that to really inspire me to do well. Because, there's no greater role that I've ever been given than the role of being a mom. And so I took that role very seriously, and I decided I am creating success.
Well, I love it. And it's one of those things we talk about on the show pretty often is, at that moment when you made that decision, especially as a single mom, as a new single mom with a young child, like not being successful wasn't an option. Like you had to do it. You had all your chips in the middle of the table, essentially, and I'm sure that's what helped create a lot of your success. So again, this week, guys, we're talking with Peggy McColl. You can find out more at her website, Peggy McColl, and it's mccoll.com. We're going to talk more with her, but check out her YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We're going to come back, give the Mr. Biz tip of the week, and continue talking with Peggy.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Are you ready to automate your business? Automation is the key to scaling a business and building wealth. It's also one of the most difficult things for a small business owner to do on their own. If you're looking for help with automation, Pulse Technology CRM can help. We have an exclusive offer for Mr. Biz Nation. We will build everything for free, even if it's a sophisticated funnel. Visit thepulsespot.com/Mr. Biz for this exclusive offer.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. As always, at the top of the second segment, it's time for Mr. Biz tip of the week. And this one, man, this is a great segue from what we just talked about at the end of the last segment with Peggy and the leap she took in 1994 in starting her own company as a single mom. And the tip this week is start with yes, with ideas, with customers, with employees, etc. Think of how it can work, not thinking about how it can't work, not how it will not. And you guys will, I know you know this. There are people in your lives that no matter what, you come up with an idea or anything, right? And the first thing their instinct is, they're going to tell you why. Hey, let's go to the park today. Oh, I think it's supposed to rain later. What the heck is that crap? What kind of attitude is that? Like, I those people are so draining to me. Like, I have to limit my time around people like that because, okay, it's going to rain. So what time is going to rain? Well, it's going to rain at 3 o'clock. Well, it's 10 a.m. Let's get to the park now and spend 4 hours at the park and be done at 2 before the rain. Don't tell me it's going to rain later. Tell me how we can work around that. Super important in all aspects of life, but especially those of you who have employees. When someone comes to you with an idea, think about this. You're trying to encourage employees to come up with ideas. If every time someone brings you an idea, your first response is something negative, and it's like, oh, well, we tried that before. That employee who might have a lot of really great ideas is going to stop coming to you with ideas because they're going to constantly get shot down. You can't do that. With relationships, spouses, all that kind of stuff, super, super important. You got to start with yes, no matter what, how crazy the idea is. Okay, wait a minute. That sounds absolutely nuts, Peggy, but how can we make it work? Let's think about how this might work. Think about things like that. And maybe you can't, but at least have the conversation and have the open mindset to think about how it can work. So that's Mr. Biz tip of the week this week. Super important.
Great tip.
All right. Off my soapbox. That one gets me fired up, Peggy.
I can see why, and for very good reason.
Yeah. Well, so let's dive into this a little bit. So I guess where I want to start is, you've written 21 books. I mean, there's all this amazing success. Why did you decide to write their first book? Like, what was that process like? You're like, I mean, how do you go from not writing any books to like, I'm going to write one, and now you've written 21?
When I decided to write the first book, it really came from a place of just creating a tool or a resource for people to read that has a simplistic understanding. There are so many books that are out there, and I've read all of them, I'm sure. I've read thousands of books, and some of them are just complicated. And the thing that I found was a little bit frustrating when I would study these other books is you'd get guidance on do this. And I would be reading the book thinking, how? Okay, I understand that I'm supposed to have faith in my outcome, believe in the invisible, but how do you do it when this is going on in your life? It's like you want to improve your finances, but yet you continue to look at your bank account and it's in a negative, or you're continuing to get statements or, bills coming in. How do you actually do it? How do you apply it? And I'm one that's always creating tools. Like, I love using tools. So I thought, I want to help people. I want to help people have a very simplistic understanding so that they can apply it, because that's where the real magic occurs, is in the application. So that's what inspired me to get writing in the first place.
So what have you found since then, for people that are watching or listening that are thinking, man, I think I got a book in me. I didn't think I had any in me, and here I've done 3, and I'm already starting to think about number 4, which is insane because I don't like to write. I know you and I talked about that. Yeah. I don't even like to write at all, and I know it sounds crazy, but I don't. What are some of the benefits that you found from writing a book?
Yeah, I don't like writing either. And you don't have to write. You could record it. You could repurpose material. You could get a ghostwriter. You could interview yourself or have someone interview you. There's so many different ways that you can go as far as creating the content for a book. What was the question?
No, what are some of the benefits you found from writing a book?
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. The first one, which was a wonderful surprise, actually, when I was writing the book, and I gave myself a month to do it, an hour every day, Monday through Friday. It took me 20 hours to write my first book, and I just got up at 5 a.m. What I found a big benefit was I felt really good about myself. It actually does improve your confidence in yourself. It's an accomplishment. And it feels good to get it done. So that was one. Second one is people will assume, oh, you must know what you're talking about. You must be an expert because you've written a book, right? That's probably one of the biggest. And another big benefit, and this is for any entrepreneur or business owner, is it can lead to revenue. It could lead to people finding out who you are, what you do, buy your product, buy your service, or invest in you. So it can do that. Or, well, let's just slide in another one. It can also be another source of income. Like if you release a book in paperback, there's a source of income. You can also have it in hardcover. You could have it in audio. You could have it in Kindle or electronic version. There's 4 sources of income. And let's say it does well and you get another publisher from another country contacting you and they want to translate your book into another language. There's another source. And as you did the introduction, I have 37 languages of my books, and all of them came with an advance.
Yeah, and I learned that too. Completely, it blew me away. My first book was sort of accidental, and it was very short. But I found out right away, and I created all the different versions of my book, not necessarily thinking about revenue, which is crazy, Mr. Biz, and I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking, let me try to make this as easy as possible for people to consume my content. So if you're not a reader and you like to listen to books, you're not going to buy my book. You might buy it. You're not going to read it. You're not going to actually get the benefit out of it. So let me do the audio. If you are a big Kindle person and you like to, you don't like the physical copy, but you're kind of in between, then let's have that. And some people are big book people. So I want the hardcover. I want to be able to grab it and, feel it's hardy, And so that's what's sort of all accidental. But yeah, I've experienced the same things. I guess let me ask you that question. I guess selfishly, I'll ask the question about having them published in different languages. Each time that happened for you, was it just sort of unsolicited? Someone reached out to you and said, hey, yeah, I'd love to translate your book.
Every time really? It was unsolicited. Okay. Every time. I never approached foreign rights publishers. And the reason why it happened is because I was following my own sort of model or formula for marketing online. You see, when I wrote my first book, I was still a single mom and I didn't have any desire to be vacant from my son's life. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, how can I create success? In other words, get the books out there in the world, but at the same time, be home taking care of what's most important to me, my son. And I thought, I'm going to use the internet. And it was early days of people marketing on the internet. And it was like heyday. And it can still be done. It's still effective. Only now there's over 5 billion people online. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look at glass 2/3 full. I look at that's much more opportunity. How many people were online in 1994, 1995? I look at that as that would have been daunting.
Right.
To me, like I look now and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much out there that's right at our fingertips, right on our phones, and readily available. Whereas in 1994, 95, there were no smartphones. There was not the easy access, and not everyone had access to the internet. So absolutely daunting. I can't imagine what that was like for you. So again, the guys, this week we're talking with Peggy McColl. Let me see here, make sure I get all this right. PeggyMcColl.com. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And you can go to her YouTube channel, follow her on Instagram, on Facebook, Peggy McColl Fans, and on LinkedIn as well. And she also wanted me to include something, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, but epitomyroadmap.com, epitomyroadmap.com. So we're going to hit a break. We'll come back. We'll find out what the heck that is, and we'll get some more tips on making the process simple to create a book.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Business owners have a continually growing to-do list with little time for revenue-producing activities. With Check Off Your List and their experienced team of virtual assistants, you can focus on growing your business. Visit checkoffyourlist.com to learn how Check Off Your List's skilled team can handle your day-to-day tasks like social media, bookkeeping, calendar maintenance, and much more. Contact Check Off Your List at checkoffyourlist.com or call 888-262-1249 to see how their virtual assistants can help you live to work rather than work to live.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. Peggy, I was watching you, and I really appreciate the fact that when the lead-in said you can check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books, that you didn't laugh or chuckle, and you're like, 3, really? I got 21. But anyway.
I wrote it down. MrBizBooks.com.
Yeah. Again, try to make it easy for people to find them.
For sure.
Making it easy. So I guess I want to, first of all, let's find out, I kind of teased it at the end of the last segment. What can people find at epitomyroadmap.com?
Yeah, what I did was I created a book. It's a freebie, it's a giveaway. And this is an idea for any of the entrepreneurs or business owners, because anybody can do this. So I created this free book, and it's called Your Book, Your Business, Your Breakthrough. And it's kind of like a teaser, right? And the idea behind it is to help people understand or inspire them to see what's possible. And so that is what people can get at epitomyroadmap.com. But in addition to that, I did a webinar, and the webinar really speaks about what's possible in the industry, because this is $1 billion industry, $122 billion in sales last year for authors. And the only prerequisite to get into being an author is desire. Or sometimes I say, if you can fog a mirror, you can become an author, because anybody can become an author. I've worked with authors of all ages. From 5, I had a little boy, I think his father helped him, but he wrote a book. And can you imagine how many 5-year-olds are going into kindergarten saying, I'm an author? Or, my great niece wrote a book when she was 10 and made it a bestseller, and she made it a bestseller on her birthday. So, Epitome Roadmap, I don't talk about the kids, but in Epitome Roadmap, in the webinar, I also talk about, some business people, entrepreneurs that made a decision to buy a book, and how that created either hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, or in some cases millions, up into the 8 figures as well. One of the gentlemen that I worked with, he runs his own business. It is an online business, so he's savvy in that area. But he decided to write a book, and he had no idea how to do it. And he thought it would be a big job, like a big project. And that's actually what stops a lot of people from making the decision to write. And I told him, no, it's not. It's easy. You have to believe it's easy, kind of like the glass 2/3 full. And so I got him to think a little bit differently about it, and gave him some guidance, and he got his book done. And when he launched it, he generated $11.8 million in 2 weeks. $11.8 million. Now, he did that because he tied the book to some free training online, where people would read the book, go to the training, sign up for the training, and then take a course. So they joined a program. He got a lot of people on board promoting it and supporting it as affiliates. And that's how he generated $11.8 million. But anybody can do it. It's simply a formula that can be followed or replicated in many cases. I mean, we could sit here all day long, Ken, and I could tell you stories of business owners that have generated significant amounts of money from a book or a book idea, whether it's a physical book or whether it's an actual or an ebook, physical book, either way. And that's one of the things. Like, I have 21 books, but not all of them have been printed. There's been some books that I've used as lead generators, and that's what they are. And there's been effort put into it and content into it, but they're designed as a lead generator for the business.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So I want to get a couple tips from you before we're done about how to make the process simple. I know you've kind of scratched the surface on a little bit, but before we even talk about that, again, I want to try to appeal to people that have always thought about writing a book. What is at least one thing, Peggy, that you see as a prerequisite for becoming a successful author?
Well, you got to see yourself as a successful author. You got to believe in it. A lot of people don't actually begin the process because they don't believe anybody would want to read what they have, or they think they're not a great writer. or they don't like writing. I mean, you and I had that conversation as well, right? I don't consider myself a great writer, but you don't have to be a great writer. You can hire an editor. There's these wonderful people that we have been blessed with on the planet called editors. They can make your work great if you want. Now, you could hire a ghostwriter. I've had ghostwriters write some of my books, and I don't know whether I'd hire a ghostwriter from this point on based on what I've learned, from working with ghostwriters, but ghostwriter is another idea for those that don't want to write their book. But you have to make the decision that you're going to do it, believe that it's going to be a great end product, which means your book, and then get on with the work.
Yeah. I am not a ghostwriter type person. Like my books are so much based on my knowledge base.
Right.
And so it's just, I can't even fathom having a ghostwriter. I know the process, you can make that work because a lot of people write their autobiographies through a ghostwriter. It just seems so foreign to me. And even though I shouldn't say I don't enjoy the process. The process overall, the way I've figured it out to make it work for myself is not as awful as it was when I first thought about it. But well, before I let you go, Peggy, can you give us, I don't know, we've got just a little over 3 minutes, but maybe just 2-3 ways that we can simplify the process. I know you mentioned a ghostwriter is one thing, obviously, but are there some other things that maybe might help some people get over that intimidation factor before they get started?
Yeah, I think you're going to discover, like when you decide to write the book, you're going to discover what type of writer you are. I sort of see them in 2 camps. You're either a discovery writer where you will just sit down and let it flow, like open up the keyboard, open up a Word doc and let it flow. Is that you, Ken?
That's me.
You're a discovery writer. Me too. I'm a discovery writer. But there's others that are a little more analytical. And what they'll do is they'll sit down and they'll think, okay, well, here's the main theme of the book. Here's the content or the ideas for the content, an outline that I'm going to create. Then I'm going to write little bullets, bullet points of what I'm going to cover in each chapter. Then I might add some anecdotes or, things that are going to help deliver the message more effectively. And they create it that way. And they write, start, to finish. And they may modify it or adjust the outline as they're going through. So they're a little more methodical in their approach. But you could be, like you and I are, where you're just hands on keyboard. Like I decided to write my fiction book. It was my 19th book. I'd written 18 nonfiction books and decided to go to fiction. And I literally just put my hands on the keyboard and said, okay, what needs to come. I had a general idea of what the storyline would be, but I didn't know the name of the book when I started writing. I didn't know the main character's name. And I just allowed it to flow and create as I was going along. The thing is, no one's going to see it until it's published, right? It's only for your eyes only. So until it's out there in the world, it's just something that you get to mold and, think about, clay. You get to mold it into what it is. And that's what you do with your book. You're literally molding an idea into something that ultimately will become a tool for someone else.
Yeah, and I guess I should maybe rethink a little bit. So I think I'm kind of a hybrid in between the two. So I will sit down and I knew what topics I wanted to cover throughout the book because all 3 are nonfiction. Right. And then I would just sit down and I do mine. I've talked about this on the show, but one of the ways I simplified the process because I couldn't imagine sitting down at the keyboard is I'll say today I'm going to do my chapter on growing your revenue.
Right.
And I want to make sure that I mention these 3 things and that's it. And I'll sit there. I have a person's picture. So I'm talking to someone and I just record the audio of it and I just go. And then I get that transcribed and then I edit that. And that's my process and how I simplified it to make it less intimidating for me.
It is. It's a relationship between you and the reader. So I love that you use that as a visual to write from. So that's it. You're imagining that one person is across from you and you're telling them a story or you're communicating a message or teaching them something.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had a professional reviewer review the second book, which is all about business stuff. And one of her things she wrote is she said, I love the fact that I felt like Ken was talking to me. Aww. He wasn't lecturing to, and I thought, well, I actually was, by my process. Peggy, gosh, we run out of time here. I love having you on. Again, PeggyMcColl.com, epitomyroadmap.com. We'll put them in the show notes. Peggy, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure, Ken. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. And as always, don't forget, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100+ streaming platforms.